The galaxy burned. It was not the quiet, cold burning of distant suns, but the violent shudder of reality itself. Across an unremarkable fringe sector of Imperial space, a warp storm erupted from nothing, howling like a wounded beast. Its spiraling fissures ripped across the void with claws of raw unreality, warping time, bending thought, and turning the starlight into blood-red haze. Astropaths screamed until their eyes bled, navigators clawed at their own skulls. Vox channels devolved into maddening whispers from things that had never been flesh. For most of the Imperium, such events were merely Tuesday, but this one was different. For within the screaming madness, amidst the coils of demonic possibility, something rejected the warp. Not resisted, not endured, rejected. An archaic force that was not psychic, not divine, not technological. Something older. Something that had existed before men dreamed of gods, before sorcerers first bent reality, before chaos learned the taste of mortal fear. A force of pure, undiluted will. It struck the warp like a hammer. The Imperium recoiled. Something was forced out, thrown bodily from impossible space into the material universe in a streak of incandescent violence. And then it fell. The world below was a dust-choked frontier Imperial mining moon, catalogued as Ferox Delta 94, home to iron pits, slave barracks, and a single decrepit Imperial guard outpost. The atmosphere was thin, metallic, and poisoned by centuries of unregulated extraction. The sky was always gray, the wind always sharp, and the sun, if it could be called that, barely penetrated the ash layer. Sergeant Halleck of the 23rd Ferox Industrial Conscripts was on watch duty when the heavens tore open. Through yellowed Auspex lenses, he saw a streak of fire punch through the cloud layer, trailing warp fire that flickered like the ghost of an ancient storm. "Emperor's sake," Halleck whispered. "What now?" The object slammed into the crater with a shockwave that flattened servitor sheds and sent dust geysers hundreds of meters high. Vox channels exploded with panicked shouting. The commissar screamed something about heresy. The tech priests wailed praises to the Omnissiah while simultaneously insisting that everyone stay indoors. But Halleck stared. Something was rising from the crater. And it was human. Broad, scarred, bare-chested despite the razor wind. Hair wild like a lion's mane, black as volcanic stone. Eyes that glowed not with warp taint, but with something far more unsettling. Unyielding dominance, a will that seemed carved in granite. A barbarian. A warrior like the Imperium had never seen. And he was alive. Alive after falling from the sky. Alive after surviving a warp tear. Alive and angry. Halleck swallowed. Throne, what manner of space marine is that? What emerged was no Astartes. It was Conan of Cimmeria. Snow, wind, iron. Those were the first sensations Conan recognized as consciousness hammered back into him. But the snow was not snow. It was dust, thin and metallic. The wind had no cold, only bitterness. The iron came not from weapons, but from the very air. He forced himself to his feet, muscles rippling under pale, battle-scarred skin. His body felt whole. His mind felt clear, and the sky felt wrong. He had been in battle. He always was. Steel had clashed. Sorcery had stirred. And then some sorcerer, some fool drunk on power, had unleashed a ritual too mighty for mortal hands. Conan had carved his way through lesser foes, had reached the sorcerer, had raised his blade to strike. And then darkness, fire, a tearing sensation like the gods themselves clawing at him. Now he stood on a world of metal dust. The crater sprawled around him, smoke hissed from the earth, and atop a nearby ridge, a cluster of armored men stared down at him. Thin, pale, frightened men armed with stubby rifles that flickered with reddish interior light. Conan's hand instinctively went to his hip. His sword was gone. He snarled. A life spent in constant war gave Conan an instinct sharper than any predator's. Within breaths, he evaluated terrain, enemies, escape routes, and potential weapons. The armored men above were weak, malnourished, terrified, lacking the stance of real warriors. But their weapons, those rifles radiated a faint hum. Sorcery? Strange lightning? He felt no sorcerous aura, yet the air around them vibrated with unnatural power. He bent, fingers closing around a jagged shard of metal from the crater. It was crude, half-melted, but heavy. It would kill just fine. One of the soldiers, Halleck, shouted, "Identify yourself." Conan cocked his head. The language was unfamiliar, but meaning, tone, and intent were unmistakable. A challenge. He raised the metal shard into a guard stance. The commissar panicked. "Heretic drop pod breach! Fire!" 20 lasguns snapped forward. Conan moved. He sprinted out of the crater with the explosive acceleration of a predator catapulted into battle. Las bolts tore through the air, sizzling with arcane energy, but they were slow, predictable, telegraphed by the clumsy soldiers wielding them. Conan weaved between them. The first shot grazed his arm, searing flesh in a straight line. Conan snarled. It felt like sorcery, like the bite of a fire serpent. Pain, yes, but pain was an old companion. Pain meant he was alive. He roared and closed the distance. The first conscript barely screamed before Conan shattered his weapon arm with a downward strike. Bones crunched like twigs. Conan ripped the lasgun away. The soldier collapsed. Conan swung the rifle like a club, smashing a second conscript across the jaw with enough force to twist the man's head unnaturally. Chaos erupted. "What in the throne's name is he? Stop him! He's just a man!" "That's no man." Their words meant nothing to Conan. He saw only enemies attacking him with light-spitting staves. He broke them. He snapped bone, crushed throats, disarmed weapons, and moved with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime killing with nothing but instinct, muscle, and stubborn refusal to die. Not a single action was wasted, not a blow lacked intention. He fought like a storm given flesh. Lasguns fired again, closer this time. A bolt struck him square in the ribs, burning a hole through skin, but failing to slow him. Another clipped his thigh. Conan roared in challenge and hurled a disarmed soldier into 3 more, toppling them like sticks. "Back, back," the commissar shouted. "We need heavier fire!" Conan understood none of the words, but all of the fear, and he welcomed it. 20 minutes later, the battlefield fell silent. Dozens of guardsmen lay unconscious or incapacitated. Bones were shattered, armor was bent, rifles lay discarded and broken. Conan, scorched and bleeding but unbowed, stood atop the ridge, holding a heavy industrial mining pick he had torn off a mechanized loader. Halleck watched from behind a wrecked rock hauler, trembling. "This," he whispered, "is not a human." But he was wrong. Conan was exactly human, just not their kind. When the Imperial reinforcements finally descended, 3 chimeras, a squad of Tempestus scions, and a junior inquisitor named Vara Kane, they found the battlefield littered with groaning soldiers and one man standing among them, covered in blood not entirely his own, chest rising and falling with calm, predatory control. Vara Kane stepped forward. Her psychic senses screamed, not because Conan radiated warp energy, but because he radiated nothing. A perfect void, a silent wall, a mind that simply refused any intrusion. Her third eye pulsed with pain. This man was wrong, an anomaly, a paradox, a presence the warp had spat out because it could not digest him. "Seize him," she commanded. A dozen scions advanced. Conan's eyes narrowed. He hefted the mining pick, and the 41st millennium prepared to learn what a barbarian truly was. Thus began the first ripple. Thus began the doom of Ferox Delta 94. Thus began the arrival of the one man who would defy gods, bend armies, ignite rebellions, and shake the very foundation of the galaxy. A barbarian against a nightmare future. And he did not fear it. He feared nothing. Not even the warp. Not even gods. And certainly not men with guns. The galaxy burned, and Conan sharpened his sword. The arrival of the Cimmerian had not only shaken the fabric of the Imperium, it had ignited a chain reaction that the Adeptus Mechanicus would later call an age of unbound convergence. This was the moment when the old and new structures of power collided. A barbarian who understood nothing of technology had somehow become the gravitational center of every future catastrophe and of every future hope. Where Conan walked, the old stability of the Imperium fractured. Where he conquered, the hidden weaknesses of the galaxy were torn open. This section examines the second phase of the what-if timeline. The era when Conan, fully aware of his power, began reshaping the galaxy into the image of his old world, by accident, by instinct, and by sheer force of will. It begins with a sword, an idea, and a mistake that would alter the destiny of Warhammer 40K forever. The weapon that would come to define Conan's legend in the 31st millennium did not begin as something cosmic. It began as a crude piece of plasteel scavenged from a shattered Imperial tank. Conan had reforged swords many times during his life, after battles, after betrayals, after wandering deserts and forgotten kingdoms. But in this new world of iron beasts and thunder weapons, he found that ordinary swords shattered too easily. He wanted steel that sang like the blades of his youth. So he traveled with a band of tech priests who followed him, not out of loyalty, but out of terrified fascination. They had never met a human who could kill a Chaos champion with a weapon that should have snapped on impact. They had never met a man whose mere presence disrupted the predictive logic of their machine spirits. They believed him to be a kind of human anomaly, a creature whose strength and survivability violated biological and statistical norms. They did not yet understand what he truly was, a man unbound by the galaxy's rules. At a dormant forge world in the outer reaches of Ultima Segmentum, they found a deep-core thermal foundry. Its machine spirits had not stirred in millennia. Its reactors were cold. Its manufactoria were dead husks. But Conan was unfazed. He walked into the foundry, lit a furnace with his bare hands using primitive kindling and accelerants, threatened the machine spirits into obedience through sheer force of intimidation, and demanded the tech priests show him how to smelt the plasteel into something worthy of a warrior. What followed became legend. The tech priests taught him how to fold adamantine into plasteel. Conan taught them how to temper a blade by instinct and by ritual memory that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with warrior tradition. The foundry shook. Sparks flew into the air like newborn stars. The molten metal roared as if alive. When the forging was complete, the weapon they pulled from the flames was something no one had expected. A blade of black-silver sheen, etched with lines that shimmered with latent energy, shaped like an ancient broadsword yet humming with power. It had no machine spirit.
It had no logic circuits. It had no runes of power. And yet it radiated an aura that made the tech priests fall to their knees. Later, scholars of the Ordo Exynos would designate the weapon artifact C001, Star Killer Blade. The Eldar would speak its name in dread whispers, and the Necrons, who understood the physics of the Imperium far better than the Imperium ever could, would register a psychic anomaly that moved like a storm front through real space. But Conan only called it a sword. Whatever power slept within it, whatever ancient resonance it carried, it would become the tool that reshaped the galaxy. And when Conan lifted it for the first time, lightning cracked across the sky.
Conan never intended to build an army. Like many of the great legends of the Hyborian Age, his following assembled itself. Mutants, deserters, penal soldiers, renegade Imperial guardsmen, hive scum, feral worlders, and even some space marines who had lost faith in their chapters, all felt something primal when they encountered the Cimmerian. They saw in him a leader who did not tolerate cowardice, but also did not lie. A man who took no tribute he did not earn. A warrior who expected to stand at the front of every battle line. By the time he had crossed the borders of Segmentum Solar, Conan commanded tens of thousands. Not a disciplined, regimented Imperial regiment, but a barbarian host, reminiscent of the hordes that once stormed the kingdoms of his own world. They fought with looted lasguns, hacked-together armor, scavenged bolters, improvised explosives, and blades forged from scrap. But they fought like demons, inspired by a leader who neither feared death nor worshipped anything but strength. The Imperium did not know what to call them. Some labeled them a cult, others an emergent xeno-barbarian society. Still others called them an army of chaos. But they were simply an army of humans following a man who refused to be cowed by the institutions that had crushed countless civilizations under their heel. They marched through worlds forgotten by the Imperium, freeing some, conquering others, trampling the symbols of Imperial authority wherever they passed. Yet it was not rebellion, not exactly. Conan was not trying to destroy the Imperium. He barely understood it, and what he understood he dismissed as the bloated arrogance of old kings in crumbling palaces. He simply carved out the freedom he wanted. The mistake was that the galaxy interpreted his rise as an existential threat. And so the galaxy descended. The Farseers of Ulthwé saw Conan as a temporal aberration, a figure who was not merely dangerous, but cosmically destabilizing. His presence in real space produced ripple effects in the webway. His battles shifted fate lines in ways even the oldest among them could not predict. His forging of the Star Killer Blade had sent a visible shockwave through the skeins of destiny. Worst of all, he was unpredictable. Everything in 40K has patterns. Everything has precedent. Everything follows a cycle: despair, decay, rebirth, corruption. But Conan was from outside the system entirely. And so the Eldar decided he must be removed. Their first attempt was subtle. Assassins slipping through shadow paths, appearing like ghosts to stab him in the dark. It failed. Conan killed the first with a thrown knife. He killed the second by snapping her wrist and using her own blade against him. A third tried to cloud his mind with psychic illusions. She discovered too late that Conan's willpower was not human. His life had been spent defying sorcerers, demons, witches, and eldritch horrors. Eldar illusions were nothing to him. He grabbed her by the throat and hurled her off a cliff. The Eldar then attempted negotiation. They sent a delegation of Craftworld nobles to speak with him, only to learn that Conan had zero patience for riddles, vague warnings, or manipulative diplomacy. He told them plainly, "If you want me gone, Try your strength against mine." The Eldar withdrew, horrified. Farseer Eldrad Ulfron later described Conan as a wound in the tapestry of destiny, a blade cutting through prophecy, a human shaped like a calamity. But they failed to stop him. And so fate moved to its next piece. Of all the powers in the galaxy, the Necrons interpreted Conan most accurately. They did not see prophecy. They did not fear chaos. They saw pure physics. They detected the signature of a non-localized invader, a being whose origin did not match any known timeline. Not a warp anomaly, not a dimensional ripple, not a chronology displacement. Something else. Something that should not exist. The Silent King, awakening from his long vigil, issued a directive: identify the source of the temporal distortion, contain it, and prevent further contamination of reality. But when a Necron war phalanx confronted Conan on the dead world of Halcyon Theta, something occurred that none of their calculations had predicted. The Star-Killer blade cut through living metal. This was unprecedented. Necron alloys were built to withstand the heat of stars and the weapons of the old ones, but Conan's sword sliced their bodies cleanly, disrupting their quantum integrity as if unmaking them from reality itself. The Necrons recalculated. They approached with a new tactic: activation of a Tesseract labyrinth intended to trap the barbarian forever. Conan did not understand the mechanics of the device. He only understood that a glowing cube was being opened near him. His instinct was simple: throw his sword. The blade pierced the cube at the exact instant it activated. The resulting backlash destabilized the local fabric of space-time, annihilating the Necron strike force in a singularity implosion that would later be classified as Event C Theta 9 by the Adeptus Mechanicus. The galaxy shuddered. Conan walked away, and the Necrons realized they had underestimated him.
Conan had many enemies, but he also had admirers, none more enthusiastic than the Orks. Word of the Uman war boss who kills metal boys and pointy ears with a Tiflis choppa spread across the stars. Stories of the blade that cut light. Stories of a man who challenged artillery with his bare hands. The Orks were thrilled. They wanted to fight him. They wanted to follow him. They wanted to fight him again. What followed was the strangest chapter in Ork history, the spontaneous emergence of hundreds of Ork mobs calling themselves the Barber Boys. They adopted Cimmerian aesthetics, wearing furs, wielding crude axes, and shouting variations of Conan's name as a battle chant. Their collective psychic field began to manifest something new, a growing Gestalt idea of the Barber Way, empowering every Ork who embraced it with higher aggression, better physical conditioning, and disturbingly improved tactical instincts. A Wog was forming. Its center of gravity was Conan, whether he liked it or not. When the first Ork war boss, Gorgots the Cleaver, confronted him, Conan faced him head-on. The duel lasted 12 seconds. Conan broke Gorgots' jaw, tore his arm off, and hurled him into a rock formation so hard that the war boss considered following him rather than fighting him. But instead of dying, Gorgots rose to his feet, laughing. "That was proper!" The Barber Wog grew exponentially. Orks began migrating toward Conan's battles, not to defeat him, but to watch him fight and cheer as if celebrating a primal god of war. This was dangerous. A Conan-centered Wog had the potential to become a psychic catastrophe, a green tide powered by admiration rather than hate. A new Ork messiah was emerging. Conan didn't notice. Conan didn't care. He simply continued fighting whoever challenged him. But the galaxy noticed, and the galaxy panicked. To the High Lords of Territoria, Conan was no longer a curiosity, no longer an anomaly, no longer an unfortunate disruption. He was a threat that unified renegades, destabilized whole segments, disrupted Eldar prophecy, attracted Ork worship, and killed Necrons with a sword. Worst of all, his following grew every day. Conan had become a counter-imperial cultural force, inspiring disobedience across systems where faith in the Emperor had already weakened. Some administratum officials feared that Conan might accidentally start a civil war without ever intending to. The decision was made. The planet he currently occupied, Vandamar IX, would be subject to exterminatus. The order was signed by the Lord Commander Militant himself. A fleet of Purity-class battleships entered low orbit. The population, both Conan's followers and every innocent inhabitant, was deemed disposable for the sake of galactic stability. But fate intervened. A small faction within the Inquisition argued that Conan could be useful. Not controlled, no one believed that, but weaponized. If Conan could be directed toward the enemies of mankind, chaos, Xenos empires, traitor enclaves, he could become the greatest blunt instrument the Imperium had ever wielded. Their interference delayed the exterminatus order by 12 hours. That delay saved Conan. It doomed the galaxy. For in those 12 hours, an even greater force arrived. Chaos. The ruinous powers had been watching Conan since the moment he entered the galaxy. At first, they had been confused. Conan produced little warp presence. His mind was not easily touched. He had no psychic imprint to manipulate. But he radiated something infinitely more dangerous. Raw, unfiltered willpower. Conan's soul burned with the intensity of a primordial storm. It was not shaped by fear, faith, despair, or corruption. It was shaped by survival, by hunger, by the pursuit of strength. This made him interesting. To Khorne, he was a demigod in waiting. To Teach, he was an anomaly of fate. To Slaanesh, he was a creature of perfect physical focus. To Nurgle, he was a defiance of entropy. But none could sway him. He did not worship. He did not bargain. He did not seek power. Chaos realized that Conan was the ultimate heretic, because he belonged to no one. Thus they sent their greatest gambit, a united Chaos Legion strike force, led by a demon prince whose name had been forbidden even in the archives of the Black Library. The demon prince descended upon Vandamar IX, breathing warp fire, wielding a demon weapon forged in the darkest depths of the Imperium. Before any army could move, the demon prince confronted Conan personally. The battle was recorded by dozens of augur arrays. Most of the recordings were corrupted. Some were erased by sheer warp interference. But a few fragments survive. Grainy, unstable, but unmistakable. A mortal man. A cosmic monster. A sword that defied reality. The demon prince unleashed warp storms that shattered fortresses. Conan leapt through fire, carving through demonic flesh that regenerated faster than it could be destroyed. The two warriors fought for 23 minutes. In the final moment, Conan drove the Starkiller blade through the demon prince's chest. The creature screamed, not in pain, but in disbelief. The blade did not merely kill it, it erased it. A warp echo reverberated across the galaxy as a demon prince was slain not by faith, not by psychic might, not by exorcist rites, but by a sword wielded by a barbarian. Chaos recoiled.
and the galaxy trembled. Conan was now more than a barbarian, more than a warlord, more than a temporal anomaly. He had become a galaxy destabilizer. His sword was rewriting physics. His presence was reshaping Ork evolution. His defiance was warping Imperial culture. His victories were disrupting Eldar prophecy. His strength was confusing the Necrons. His soul was confounding chaos. The galaxy had never encountered such a force. What came next would decide the fate of Warhammer 40K itself.